Hello.
Hey,
Hey, I'm just setting up my camera. I haven't even set it up yet.
are you in West Hartford?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 5 monitors working
Nice.
or an adapter. Sorry, and I had met with the Lunans today, which is like half a day.
Okay. Yeah.
Ton. But
We'll
half a
talk
day.
later. We got some of the people starting to log in.
Uh
I mean, they can't.
yeah, I'm just trying to set up my
Yeah. Your camera. I got it. I had to do it this morning. It's still not perfect yet, but at least it works.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
how's
Oh
I know
my
you
gosh.
can only see my tie.
I just went for a walk and I'm all gross. Ugh. Sorry.
It's all good. We've been setting up and taking down offices today here, so it's been fun.
Oh, are you moving or just rearranging?
So they're doing our flooring, so we have to move people as they progress.
You guys are in Milford, right?
Yep. We have office in Milford, and I use part of Andrew's office in West Hartford.
Oh, okay. I forget why I was down there, but I walked by your office. You're kind of near the green or on the green or something.
We're near
Am I
it.
right?
We're technically a mile away.
Oh, okay.
We're right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. We're right across the street now. Everyone knows us now from being across the street from the liquor store. They put like a giant Walmart sized liquor store across the street. So everyone says, oh, hey, you're across the street from there now.
Oh, okay. Tell Danielle that I said hi. If you see
I
her.
will.
I miss her. She was wonderful.
Yeah, I hear she's doing pretty well. I don't see her as much anymore because she hasn't been coming since they moved. They haven't been coming in. She doesn't live as close.
I'll be right
Steve.
back. I'm just doing something with my camera. Give me just a couple minutes.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, Tom.
She's teaching somewhere now, I believe, right?
Yeah. And they moved to Southington area.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was living in Milford, she would pop in, but I get it.
Yeah. Well, we had from what James Maroney said, we've got like 60 people coming. So
Yeah, I think it was even more because there were still signups happening this afternoon.
that's really
we got
good.
we got a bunch already starting to log in now early, so that's great.
That is good. Fantastic. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. Much better, Andrew.
Yeah. I don't think it's perfect. So
Yeah, I gotta mess with mine still, but I had enough for the day.
Who has my slides, my 2 slides? Is that James?
I do. No, I haven't.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. So am I kicking it off or I forgot what we,
Yeah,
okay.
you're kicking it off.
Oof.
Yeah. No, James
Ugh.
isn't coming. I don't think he was going to knock doors.
Oh, okay.
He's up for re-election, so
I was wondering. What is his position?
he's a senator.
Really?
Yeah, he's a state senator.
Really? Where?
So Milford, Orange, part of Woodbridge, and part of West Haven.
Wow. Okay.
So his goal is to knock something like 10,000 doors.
Amazing.
So every night, if it's not raining, he's out.
Wow. Good for him.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
amazing.
It's a lot of energy, but he loves it.
Does he have an interest in special needs?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah. He's not really on the committee, but he's on general law. So he doesn't get a lot of special needs issues there.
Oh.
How's everything going with you, Catherine?
Good. Busy, you know.
Good.
I think a lot of families were hiding away during the pandemic and all of a
Yep.
sudden they're like, I need a program. So we're busy, which is always good.
Yep.
So I think we're still having some problems with that ABLE account and connecting with the guardian who's overseas.
There's a
Shelley's affairs and
you shouldn't need to.
no.
No, Rachel's overthinking it. I almost guarantee it.
Well,
I
it's
love her.
probably not Rachel.
Oh, well,
Somebody else.
Well, that's what we're here for. So please reach out to us and
Okay.
we'll help.
Yeah.
So
sometimes we won't need you to recommend an ABLE account. We'll just need you to look at the finances and tell.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is honestly more fun, right? Like, you know, that's the part where we're giving our recommendation to the committee and blah, blah, blah. But yeah,
Exactly.
I'm just, Steve, don't start for like 2 more minutes. I can just like run to the bathroom. So so I'm in my office, like just kind of got set up, Catherine. It's like in the middle of kind of everything.
Where is your office?
West Hartford.
Oh, nice town.
Yeah.
All right, we got a bunch lined up again, so why don't you run now?
Yeah, no, I am. I'm just
all right. Yeah. Bye.
This is my favorite kind of event where I don't really have to do anything.
How was it advertised?
Well, we did our usual e-blast social media, and then I think you guys shared the event on your social.
We did sponsored ads on Facebook.
Oh,
I think.
Oh.
Yeah, we did for this one.
That's really good.
That makes sense.
It
It was just a bit more than just
good turnout.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
Hmm. And how's that little baby? Or did we lose him? I think we might have lost him.
We lost him for a second. He'll be right back.
He had a baby girl, right? 2 girls now?
He's got 2.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, Emma and Lucy.
That's so nice.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, I bet. Do you have kids, Steve?
No, we have dogs.
Oh,
She has 23 kids, I guess, because she's a teacher. So she's always says she has 23 kids.
yeah.
Although someday she tells me I make 24. So
That sounds familiar.
I'm proud of it.
Well, we do miss Preston. Does Danielle still have Preston, or you don't know?
No, it was she was getting another dog now. Last I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
They usually only get them for a very short period.
Yeah,
Usually, it's usually only a year or so.
that dog was just so precious, so sweet. I loved him.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 4 or 5 come through the office now, so it's kind of we miss it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
on the other hand, we now let people bring their own dogs in every once in a while. We have days where we'll actually bring like the dogs in.
We do that at Chapel Haven. Staff bring their dogs and everybody loves it. You know, because the students really can't have pets on campus. So it's a
Yeah.
chance for them to hang out with the dog. And we've even
I mean,
had, what do you call those things? I'll think of it. It's a little, not a ferret, but spiky. Somebody brought their pet, whatever, to work, and it was
oh yeah,
hedgehog. A
Hedgehog?
hedgehog.
Oh.
Yes. So
Yeah, as long as the dogs are behaved, like it's been great. We
yeah.
like having them, and my dog likes to come in because she can get spoiled.
I bet.
Everyone has treats at their desk here. It's kind of nice when she comes in.
Yeah. So it looks like we have 24 people. Good.
Yep, and going. It's the quietest it's been here all day. It's kind of nice.
Mhm.
No power tools running. I'm kind of in shock. You ready, Andrew?
Yeah, how's this for the camera and everything?
You're good.
That's
Okay.
good.
So we have about.
You have the presentation, right?
I'm ready to go. So I think we'll give it.
Okay.
We want to give it like 3 more minutes because I don't know,
Good luck.
6:05.
Could still let people in and say we'll begin momentarily.
No, they're already in. We started letting them in while you were off.
Oh, hi everyone.
Are we ready to rock and roll?
Whenever you are ready, we're ready.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome everyone tonight. My name is Catherine Sullivan DiCarlo, and I am with Chapel Haven Schleifer Center. And I could not be more excited to have our co-presenters here tonight, Stephen Rubin and Andrew Komarow. They have done this workshop for us in the past, and it has been one of the most sought after workshops that we do. And it does seem like with special needs families, we just can't offer enough information to help people plan responsibly for the future. So I really want to thank both of our presenters. And just in a quick nutshell, Chapel Haven Schleifer Center is a nonprofit located in the Westville section of New Haven. And we are actually celebrating our 50th 50 anniversary this year. So we have been in this field serving adults since 1972. And currently our youngest adult is 18 and our oldest is 70. So we are truly a lifelong program, and our mission is to empower adults to live self-determined, independent lives. And I did want to share with you a couple of events coming up. If we could go to the next slide, Stephen. In the event that you are interested in Chapel Haven, we have a number of events this fall that we would cordially invite you to. We have an informational session actually on the ground, not virtually, on September 24th at 10 a.m. at Chapel Haven. And we welcome you to come and see what we're all about. We also are continuing to do a lot of things virtually. So if you are interested in Chapel Haven and you just want to log in from the comfort of your home, which a lot of people do these days, we're having a virtual information session on Saturday, November 12th at 11 a.m. on Zoom. We also, every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, we offer a 1-hour tour at lunchtime. So that is a chance to just come to Chapel Haven and take a tour with us, see what it's all about, and be home in time to have your lunch or whatever the rest of your day is all about. So that's another option. I'm also super excited. We're having a 2-part series on Zoom with Dr. Lori Sperry from the Yale Child Study Center. The first topic on October 12th at noon will be autism and internet safety, which is a huge area for our adults and for lots of adults, how to navigate cyberspace safely. And then the second workshop will be on Thursday, October 13th. So these are back-to-back 2-day events. And the second topic is love, friendship, and sexuality. So my email is right there on the screen, cdcarlo@chapelhaven.org. As we get rolling, I'll drop it in the chat as well. And I would cordially invite you to come and check out Chapel Haven. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our expert panel.
Thank you. So I'm Steve Rubin. That's Andrew Komarow. You can tell because his says Andrew Komarow and mine says Steve Rubin. And tonight we're going to go through a little bit about ABLE accounts and go through some serious stuff in what we think is a humorous way. Would you agree, Andrew?
Yes, I would agree.
All right. We think we're funny. I'll let you start, Andrew.
So what are we going to cover? So we're going to cover what are some of the rules and history surrounding ABLE accounts and opportunities and reasons to consider opening an ABLE account and, how an ABLE account can be utilized, the options specifically available to those in Connecticut, although if you're attending from somewhere else, the options still apply. And one thing that we discovered when we started doing this a few years ago, even before Connecticut had an ABLE account, is can't just talk about, oh, you should open one. It's great, right? We had a library open, we helped people open them, had people bring laptops, but there were so many questions as to why. And one of the main reasons to consider an ABLE account is to protect money for government benefits. So we do a high level overview of government benefits, to help understand the reasons to consider opening an ABLE account. And we go into a little bit of trust as well. So really we cover just about everything.
Everyone will be an expert by the time we're done.
There will be a test. So there's several different types of government benefits. There's even many more than this, but we break down the main. And there's money, medical, and housing. Notice living with parents is not necessarily, a government benefit, but we put it there. Otherwise, it just looked too little with just Section 8. SSI and SSDI. There's something called the DAC, Disabled Adult Child Benefit, which looks like SSDI, but isn't. And then there's Medicare and Medicaid.
So SSI, or supplemental insurance from Social Security, is for individuals who are disabled that are generally going to be above the age of 18. Now, you can qualify prior to age 18, but why do I say above 18? Because under the age of 18, there's a parental deeming rule where they deem the parent's assets to the child. So we generally want to apply above age 18. SSDI is Social Security disability insurance, which is based on an individual's work history or a qualifying disability as a child under a parent's work history for a parent who themselves is disabled, retired, or deceased. Now, SSI is a means tested program, so there's an asset limit. Connecticut is lower than the federal limit. So federal limit is $2,000 in assets for SSI and Medicaid. Connecticut is $2,000 for the SSI portion, but the Medicaid portion is $1,600 in assets. Why? Well, it's a very long historical story, but the short summary is we are a very old state and we had rules prior to the federal government creating the program. So we are what's called 209B. That means that the federal government had to respect our existing law. And under that rule, we get to use our old numbers, which means it has not increased since the 70s and is not going to increase anytime soon. Now with SSI, when you're dealing with Medicaid issues, you're going to have in-kind support and maintenance problems. In-kind support and maintenance is anything that can be used for food or shelter. So if I buy Andrew dinner tonight, well, that's food, right? If he's getting SSI, it's an automatic reduction in his benefits because I gave him food. So we have to be careful with that. That's why living with your parents can be a benefit, but you better have a lease with your child if they're getting SSI. Otherwise, they will have an automatic 1/3 reduction in their benefit, because the reality is your rental agreement with them will only pay you a couple $100s a month. It will keep their benefit. Whereas if they went out in the real world to go rent property, it's going to cost far more than what SSI is paying them. SSI is a gateway to Medicaid. So in order to get, you get a guaranteed Medicaid benefit with SSI. In Connecticut, it is a 2-step plan. So in most states, you just apply for SSI, you automatically get Medicaid. You actually have to apply separately for Medicaid here in Connecticut because we like to make it as much work as possible. Now, when you get SSDI, you can qualify for Medicare in the future. It takes 2 years for a waiting period to qualify for Medicare after the disability benefit has started, with some exceptions. There's certain diseases and diagnoses that will get fast tracked to get instant Medicare access, ALS being the most common. SSDI generally and hopefully pays more. In most cases, it's not restricted like SSI to a national standard. It's based on your own work history in a formula, or your child using your work history under the same formula. There's no asset limit and there's no financial means testing, unlike SSI. Because of that, there's also no reduction in benefits. So the really boring stuff is, how does it get paid for? Basically, it's going to come from taxes for the most part, but SSDI is coming from withholdings. SSI is generally coming from independent tax returns on earned income. SSI is going to be Medicaid. SSDI will be Medicare, but you can get Medicaid under SSDI rules too. So there's kind of a mixed mash. I don't think you need to know every rule with the programs. Lord knows the government doesn't, but at least gives you a good idea where to go and how to get started if you're thinking about it and what each of them covers. And I think that it's important to know that while their coverages are different, and how they work is very different, they both can be very good programs and useful when utilized in the right way. Andrew?
And something else just on the Medicare and Medicaid, we have done presentations with Chapel Haven in the past on individuals who are on Medicare and Medicaid and specific Medicare supplement plans that are available to those individuals. And we have a specialist and we help with that specifically for this population. So want to just throw that out there. So and again, we went over the government benefits, and the point of it was to mention, and I did post 2 links in the chat on what Steve talked about, in-kind support and maintenance. I also think we forgot to mention that we love being interrupted. We both have ADHD, in addition to being big autistic, so we like to be interrupted. So please ask questions along the way. There's a chance we may get to it, chance we may not. One of us will answer. Again, we want to make sure people don't fall asleep during our presentation. Unlike
they can sleep during yours.
Okay. So anyway, but what's important with the government benefits is that DAC, that Social Security disability, and that Medicare, you can have $10 million in your bank account and be on those benefits. It's only Husky in Connecticut, which is Medicaid. Well, not every type of Husky, but let's go with it for the moment. Husky and SSI. An important takeaway beyond all the technicalities, and you can go to the next slide, that Steve gave is almost everyone on SSI will not be on SSI in the future. And that is because most parents will pay into Social Security in some way, shape, or form, not always. And eventually they retire, become disabled, or pass away, one of the three. So it's important to think about that although SSI is restrictive, it's not going to last a long time. It's the least important benefit. It's the most complicated. It's the most talked about, and it's the one you have to get first. If it sounds backwards, it is. Okay. So an ABLE account is also called a 529A. If that sounds familiar, it's because it was modeled after the 529 legislation, which is Chet in Connecticut, and which are the traditional college savings accounts. Why may you consider one? There are a few other reasons, but for the most part, it's these means tested benefits where there's a limitation to how much you can have in a bank account and maintain Medicaid, SNAP, or SSI. That's not Medicare, SSDI. So in Connecticut, the limit is 1,600 because we would go broke if we allowed everyone to have 2,000. Most states, it's 2,000. You are allowed to have more assets in an ABLE account, and they are not held against you. Okay. What can you use an ABLE account money for? Everything. I think I've seen recently a whole presentation on what can you use money in an ABLE account for. And if someone wants to try to stump us with like, what could you use an ABLE account for? It's almost anything you can possibly imagine. Now, there are some more restrictive rules with things like first party special needs trust, but this is not a first party special needs trust. If it can benefit the individual, how is a trip to Disney not good for your mental health? Well, unless it's the time I went with my mother-in-law, it almost always is. So, but almost every example I've ever got for an ABLE account, can I use the money for this? Can I use the money for that? You think about somebody with a disability, you think even more specifically autism, what part of their life and something they would want to buy, would not be beneficial to their, again, overall well-being. It's pretty much endless what you can use an ABLE account for. So this is one of the parts where you should be the least concerned. Who is eligible? So individuals with significant disabilities, onset of disability had to occur before the age of 26. That does not mean you need to be on disability. That does not mean you need to even know about your disability. So in the example of autism, you are born with it. Vaccines, COVID, bleach, or I don't know, anything else does not cause it. So if you're diagnosed with autism at 30, the disability you always had beforehand, you would be eligible for an ABLE account. Now, whether or not you should open one, that depends, but you would be eligible for one. Some states do require you to submit a doctor's record. I'm not sure exactly what Fidelity does when you send it to them or how they judge, but they do ask for it. Some states allow you to simply self-certify. It just takes one less step away. But given that the main reason to open an ABLE account is to protect government benefits, if you are on SSI or SSDI, then you are automatically eligible. If you are looking to apply for SSI or SSDI, then you are more than likely, again, eligible, assuming you meet the criteria of onset prior to age 26. There is legislation to increase that age, but I I'm unsure of how much a difference that will actually make, but it will probably happen in the near future anyway. Who can establish an ABLE account? So an ABLE account, one of the coolest features is it is owned, there's a hierarchy of who's in control of the ABLE account. The beneficiary is the individual with the disability. Then there's parent, legal guardian, agent under durable power of attorney, as well as a representative payee. The beneficiary, the individual with the disability, is always number one. They are always in the driver's seat, which is very unique. What a lot of people don't realize when it comes to a special needs trust is the individual can't spend that money. It's not their money. They have to request the money for food, water, taxes, groceries, bills, everything. So having money that an individual can spend on their own accord is really important. So it's, if a parent can open one for a beneficiary, but at the end of the day, it's always the beneficiary, the individual with the disability, who has the most control over an ABLE account, which is, again, unique from how a lot of other similar things work. So, okay, who can contribute to an ABLE account? Pretty much anyone. I have an ABLE account. If anyone wants to contribute to my ABLE account, I will give you the account number. You are more than welcome to give me money. Some state that contributions are not deductible from federal taxes. However, there is a tax credit called the saver's credit, where if the individual is not claimed as a dependent and their income is low, they're likely to qualify. Way to look at it is potentially similar to a match from the government. And again, it's a credit. So now some states do offer a tax deduction. Connecticut does not. Connecticut does, however, offer you a deduction for the chet. You can do what we call the chet shuffle, which is you can take $10,000, put it into a chet. A week later, you can move that into an ABLE account and you get $600 to $700 off your state of Connecticut income taxes for 2 hours worth of work, $350 an hour. I think that's even above what a lawyer like Steve charges. So that's pretty good.
I'll have to raise my rates.
Next slide. So very, very common, if grandparents open accounts, there's what's called UGMA, UTMA, passbook savings. Usually it's a small amount of savings in an individual's name. When they turn, let's call it 21, then they have full access to the account. A great thing to do is prior to the individual turning 18 to move money like this into an ABLE account or a chet. 529, you get tax deduction, tax-free growth. It's not counted against you. Regardless of whether or not the individual will need benefits, it's a good thing to do to get prepared. So a lot of these accounts, existed for, good reasons, but if you can, if an individual has money in their name, not a bad, we would recommend moving it to a chet anyway for the tax deduction. And it's actually counted less for financial aid purposes. So disability or not, probably shouldn't have one of these unless it's a high dollar amount. So the individual with the disability is probably not paying that much in taxes. By definition, they really can't make that much money anyway. So a lot of financial planners and attorneys talk about the tax advantages. I have really yet to meet more than a few people who actually care about the tax advantages with an ABLE account. It's not one of the most important things, but it is a consideration. So payments for those qualified disability expenses are not subject to any taxes or penalties. And as we discussed, they're basically anything. Again, you can't just take the money out of, an ABLE account And I think you could even warrant the casino as being good for mental health, right? But I
That's a
think you
good
could
argument.
or even giving to charity, right? I'm going to say you can't give it away to your friend, but that brings people happiness, is giving money to great charities and great causes like Chapel Haven. You could do that with an Able account. That's absolutely qualified. Maybe just I don't know, holding a contest and giving it away to whoever you decided, probably not. But even that, I don't know, makes you happy. Who am I to judge? So payments for non-qualified disability expenses, there's income tax and a 10% penalty. Really don't see any issues. If you can justify and document it, I feel very comfortable saying that. Then again, I'm also not an attorney. And I'm not going to audit you. So take that with a grain of salt. There's an SSI suspension rule for $100,000. I have never, in the 1,000+ Able accounts that I've either helped people open or run across, I've never once run into this rule being an issue, yet it's mentioned all the time. The reason is because realistically speaking, you can only put 16,000 or so per year in an Able account. And by the time an Able account might get to that size, then you're probably in a situation where you're no longer on SSI. Basically, the government's saying if you have that much money in Able account, you probably don't need to live off the $500 a month. And as soon as the account goes down below 100,000, like if you invested your entire Able account in Bitcoin at the beginning of the year, it would be. That's a joke. You can't invest in Bitcoin in an Able account that I know of. Some states have what's called a Medicaid payback clause. Connecticut's one of them. It doesn't matter where you open your Able account. Nice try. If you try to open in Pennsylvania, still applies because you live in Connecticut. And that just means the state will get paid back for services for any money left in the account. So realistically speaking, an Able account is not an alternative to a special needs trust or proper planning. It is a complement to all of it. And I don't think, and again, I've never seen an Able account above 100,000. I've seen some get, close, and maybe a few that'll be there soon. And the ones that do, they wouldn't be subject to this SSI suspension rule. The current max is a little over $500,000. But again, it's important to look at other planning options as well if you're looking to put that much in an Able account. I kind of went over this.
Figured.
So yeah. Okay, here we go. Next. I kind of went over this too. Yeah, right. Are we getting questions? Am I missing them? Or am I just I'm just that good that there's no possible questions on this complex topic?
You're
That's
that
awesome.
good, or you put them all to sleep. I'm not sure which yet.
That actually could be a valid option.
There you go.
Something that was on the previous slide, although we could stay on this one, is you can have an SSI check go directly to an Able account. We always highly recommend having it go to the bank account first, then having it a few days later automatically come out of the bank account and go to the Able account. The reason for that is to have a good trail for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Also, you wouldn't want to be in a situation where you're accidentally contributing too much and needing to deal with that. So there's two main Able accounts that we recommend. Now, if you're in a state other than Connecticut, you can reach out to us. Some special exceptions apply, like California. You probably want to open California's if you live there. But for example, in Connecticut, there's no advantage to opening one in Connecticut. Quite the opposite. We've had clients spend hours trying to do it in Connecticut, and then we suggest one or two alternatives, and they wish they had done that sooner. So if you know Fidelity, if you have Fidelity, Massachusetts uses Fidelity for their Able account. There are no fees to open, no fees to maintain. It's very convenient if you already have Fidelity. So I would definitely consider that. Now, one of the negatives is Fidelity makes it a little harder to spend the money. You have to transfer the money from an ABLE account to one of their checking accounts and then spend the money. So you do need to open 2 accounts. So if you're not going to be frequently spending the money, if it's more for the savings, but you're not using it like a checking account, which some people do, Fidelity can be a great option. Likewise, if you are only starting with $100 or $1,000, low dollar amounts, those $30 fees can really add up. Holler if you use Bank of America, then you know what I'm talking about. But Fidelity doesn't have those, so definitely worth considering. So our favorite state to usually recommend is Ohio, which is stable account. They were the first ABLE account in the country. They're the easiest to use. They do not ask for proof of a disability. They just ask you to self-certify. They have a great debit card. They have great support that just handles their accounts. There is the potential for a maintenance fee. They do have a great system for keeping track of the expenses as well. Very easy to open just online. Ohio/Stable is online only. They do not have a paper application, which is, potentially a negative, but they do that for efficiency purposes. So that would be where I don't know if Fidelity does either. I guess that would be the sole reason to consider Connecticut's. So, and then the next page. So those are the links to open the accounts. We always offer to help anyone open an ABLE account. I don't know how many people we've helped open them. We do not charge for it. We just think it's a good thing to do. Financial planners have limited options for being able to sell or recommend ABLE accounts, especially ABLE Now. They are not as good. They have some higher fees. So although we actually could sell them, we usually don't recommend them. So essentially, even if you have a financial advisor, they're probably not that well versed in ABLE accounts. In addition, the ABLE accounts that they can offer are not necessarily, the ABLE accounts that make the most sense. Also, as a financial planner with an ABLE account myself, I can say that it's also just not something, that we even want to do as far as the paperwork's concerned. So definitely something where you can just go do it yourself. I have faith in all of you. So there we go.
Well, I'm glad you have faith in everyone. So a couple of questions came in. The Q&A box on the bottom is the best way to send us messages. I just got an email from Zoom that there's something wrong with their chat function. I don't know.
Great timing.
Yeah. But that's why I have all these monitors. Now I can see my emails. So thank you, Andrew. So one of the questions that came in, will the slides be available after? Yes, we'll make the slides available. There's a recording of this. So for those of you who really like to be tortured, you can watch us all over again. Especially that mother-in-law quote that I plan to send to Andrew's mother-in-law. So, now we're going to talk about trust and special needs trust. Trusts are a legal agreement. So before we get into what is a special needs trust, a trust is a legal agreement between 2 parties, one known as a grantor or trust maker, and one known as a trustee. And sometimes it can actually be the same person. So like the trustee can be the trust maker. So for example, in my trust, I'm my trustee and I'm the grantor. Yes, it's a legal fiction, but that's actually how it works. So trusts are done in different formats and they can be created through different methods. Special needs trusts especially have multiple names and that adds to the complication of them. So you will see special needs trusts called a special needs trust, a supplemental needs trust, a first party trust, a third party trust, a sole benefit trust. You will see all of those names come into play. Generally speaking, the name means very little in the long run. It's the terms that are used in the document that are actually important. The idea behind a special needs trust and where some of those names come from is it's supposed to supplement benefits, not to supplant them. So we're not going to replace our benefits, By having the trust, the idea is we would like to keep the benefits as long as we can. Now, most of the trusts are based on Medicaid law. So it's federal law that actually creates everything, and it's codified under that. But each state gets to implement their own rules, and they're highly dependent on the states, and every state has added certain rules and regulations. Connecticut has absolutely said, hey, that's a great idea. Let's add some restrictions. And they have. So there's certain things we have to follow in Connecticut that don't exist in other states and certain qualifiers. Now, most special needs trusts can be created by different people depending on what type of trust we're dealing with. Most of them are done by a family member, but it can be done by somebody else. So it could be a friend or a relative, or anyone can essentially create a third party or third party type trust, whereas certain trusts are designed to be created only by court order, the individual themselves, a guardian, or a parent. So those are most of the things we have to look into in these things. Now, when we get to the trust, self-settled is basically what we call first party. Third party is created by somebody else with their money. So really easy way to understand this. Andrew and I go out for dinner tonight after this is all over. And we have our meal, the check comes, and shockingly, Andrew decides to pay. So when the check comes and he hands me the money, it's now first party money, right? He gave it to me. It's in my care, my custody, my control. Now, he thinks I'm going to use it to pay the restaurant for our meal, but am I legally obligated to do so? No. I could pocket it and walk out the door, and there's legally nothing he can do to stop me because it's now my care, custody, and control. That's first party money. Once it's in my name, my hands, my control, it's my money, and there's nothing you can do about that. Well, now that I'm in that situation, I run into problems. I could lose my benefit programs. Now, if we had that same set of circumstances and it was Andrew, we got the check in, Andrew paid the bill, I still benefited, right? I got my free meal out of him, but it didn't enter my care, my custody, or control. So while I still benefited it, it's not first party money. It's not my own money. Depending on benefit programs other than SSI, it has no impact on my life. It's not going to impact any current benefit program. That's the definition of third party money. So first party money is the individual's own money. Third party money is someone else's money. Moral of the story, always get somebody else to buy you dinner. And when you get that set up, when you have that person buying you dinner, you get a lot of benefits. So in a first party trust where the individual's own money, the state gets paid back. And they're really good at this. It is surprising how good they are. Under federal law, for any state plan that has Medicaid benefits, they're supposed to have a payback provision. And essentially what it says is on first party funds, so the individual's own money, when they pass away, the state has to be reimbursed for whatever it paid out. Now, that includes in a lot of these cases, any benefit program throughout their life. And it happens before the funeral is paid for. So if an individual has a funeral, you cannot pay it from a first party trust until the state has already been reimbursed all of their funds. It's federal law. So like there are some states that will go, hey, we do not do this unless we are required to. Okay, but you're required to. It's federal law. So first party money is going to be the individual's money with a payback provision held in trust for their benefit. In the hierarchy of trust, we kind of say this is our last option. We do not want to do this if we can avoid it, because nobody likes giving extra money back to the state. I've never met anyone who said, yes, pay them all my money to the state when I die. So we want to do third party money because under federal law, as an interesting thing, even though a third party trust is a trust, federal law actually excludes it from the definition of trust in federal code when you go through disability benefits or Medicaid law. So a third party trust is more frequently used to hold money from an individual. And there's a couple of ways that you can create a third party trust. So you can have funds that are created from what's called a testamentary trust. Basically, it means in my will, I put a trust in for somebody else. It can be created on its own, what we call standalone, or it can be created through another type of trust. There's a huge advantage to standalone trust. The first one that I love about standalone trust is it's kind of a funnel, because if you leave money to a child, it can go into that trust. If grandma and grandpa leave money to that child, it can go into the same trust. If somebody else in the family wants to leave money, it can go through one trust. So there's multiple ways to get money into this one location for that person. And why that's such a huge advantage for us is I have these cases, and I have right now I have a file where that just came to me from somebody else, and there's 3 disabled children involved. Well, now we found out there's 3 different trusts for each child, because grandma and grandpa set one up, the parents set one up, and turned out the aunt and uncle set one up. And everyone passed away during COVID. And all the money is now in 3 separate trusts. Well, we're running into a problem where we have 3 different people in charge, because there's a different person in charge of each one of these trusts. There's a different financial plan for each trust. There's different distribution rules set up in each trust. The plan doesn't work, right? If there's no plan here, it's going to create a nightmare. With having one trust where everyone can know that it exists and put their money in, you have the parent or the person who's creating it, in some cases being a grandparent, making sure that there's one set of rules, there's one person to follow, there's one person in charge or one company in charge, depending on how it's set up. But there's always going to be an easy method to deal with it. And the other part is you have to assume that those trusts are going to be read, whether it's by SSI or SSA in this case, or DSS. Somebody's going to look at this trust in the future. Now imagine them going through all 3 of them and not having a single mistake. So a standalone trust helps cut down on the mistakes. It makes it easier for the distributions to happen, and it gives a little bit more power. And because of the way they work, there's no requirement of paying anything back. There's no payback provisions with this third-party special needs trust. So the state doesn't get anything back at all. There's never going to be a repayment. There won't be a repayment. So having a third-party trust is always going to be our number one methodology. Now, if I have a third-party trust, can I put money into that ABLE account so that that person can still go get their groceries and still pay their bills and still have their independence while keeping the larger sum safe and making sure they keep their benefits? If the trust is drafted correctly, absolutely. As long as there's a provision in the trust that allows for that distribution, there's no reason it cannot be done. The trust still remains third-party money. The amount in the ABLE account is first party. It's why you don't put a lot in. You put in what they need to spend, and you put in some extra dollars over a period of time. But you still are going to have this exception in here. So it gives us more flexibility in our planning. We can do a lot more things, and we don't have some of the problems we have with other alternatives. So it's a really good tool, and it works well. And that's why ABLE accounts and third-party trusts can work really well hand in hand, whereas a first-party trust and an ABLE account don't go together as well because they're really not designed to be. Now, whenever we're doing, whether it's a trust or an ABLE account, for any individual who's going through it, they're going to need a few things in addition to it. So everyone needs to have a plan. And the number one document we saw throughout COVID that people didn't have was dealing with medical directives. Now, people always ask me, what's the most important document in a plan? Is it the will? Is it the trust? Is it the power of attorney? Is it the advance directive? I think it's a combination of things. I think every plan has to have important documents, but on a basic level, powers of attorney are always really important, as well as advance directives. And really the idea is just making sure we have someone who's in charge, who can manage the funds, or in this case, make medical decisions for ourselves or for an individual who's over 18, who's competent. I always recommend these. I'm recommending them in everything I do right now, because it's been such a big thing, and the courts are inundated with cases right now where people didn't have them, that we've been seeing over the last few years, where they weren't able to make decisions, and we've had a lot of conservatorships. So not only do you think you need a trust, everyone on this call, everyone over the age of 18 should have an advance directive if you're able to do so. So the key here is really, you can only do what you're comfortable with. You have to have a plan with this, right? The key from everything Andrew said and everything I said is there's a plan when we're working it out together, whether it's a trust, whether it's an ABLE account, or both. There's a plan that went into it to make it work.
So there were a few questions in the chat, and I'm not sure again with Zoom's chat going down how it works. So I'm just gonna paraphrase them and then answer them again. But I think I replied in the Q&A. The first one was a great question and something that I skipped over mentioning. And it was, if there is a 529 traditional for college savings, does it make sense? Or again, can you move that into an ABLE? And the answer is yes, you can. But what many people don't know is that that's actually not counted against the individual for SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, because a 529 is owned by, let's say, the parent, and their child is just the beneficiary. They could change the beneficiary to somebody else, like life insurance. So it's not deemed that person's money yet. So if there might be somebody else that you can change the beneficiary to and, reposition money in another way, it's also not as big a rush. That's not going to hinder somebody from qualifying for Medicaid or SSI. And that was a great question. And that was with traditional 529s. There was another question on parents' health insurance and Medicare and Medicaid. Another great question. And it's just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So what we mean by that, oh, thank you. Yes, perfect.
Got it.
This is Harbor Freight. That's a really heavy pipe, by the way. It was like $3. Anyway, I bought it. Doesn't mean I should or needed it. But at the end of the day, what we're saying is, Medicare and Medicaid together, if the individual's on both and they get a good supplement, it's probably more cost effective than staying on the parent's health insurance plan. Not always. A lot of people's annual enrollments are coming up and their benefits. That's something that we do look at for people. And, maybe it makes sense to, not be on the parent's health insurance, right? And start preparing potentially for other options. Get a Medicare supplement, Medicaid, probably don't need to be paying for 3 separate insurances. So there is that. And then the last one was, does a special need trust get taxed as other trusts do? At Form 1041, the long and short answer at the same time, the same, not always. It depends. There's an attorney on the Zoom, so we have to say that. Yes, there is a Form 1041, but they can potentially have lower tax rates than other trusts. And again, it's important to look at everything as how it fits together. So answering the question on the 529, can you? Yes. Should you? Don't know. It's, does this fit with all the other pieces that you are doing to provide for the best possible outcome? So it's important to look at things holistically and to look at what are you looking to achieve, and then what's the best way to get there.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, you have to look at it from what are your goals, what you want to accomplish to figure out how you're going to get there at the end of the day. Everything should be like that. So with that, you can still put stuff in the Q&A box. I'm trying to re-enable the chat. It says I can, but I'm not trusting it to do it while we're live. So
that's very strange. I wonder what's going on with that. So I was wondering, is there an age at which you think families should start putting all these plans in place for a young adult, or what do you recommend?
Everyone always assumes, because I'm a lawyer, I'm going to say today, and that's not my answer. My answer is, if you know when you're going to get sick or pass away, then let's figure out how many weeks it's going to take beforehand to set it up, and then we should do it. Otherwise, you do it when you can and when you're comfortable, because one of the biggest flaws we see is the mistake of not doing anything. And then we get into these emergent situations where we don't like the options. They're not good for us. They don't exist. And those are not really helpful. And now we're having a panic problem where the solution is one that's just going to make things worse and not better.
But realistically, to actually answer Catherine's question, because Steve kind of danced around it, good job for a lawyer. But it was, generally we find that when an individual is turning 18, that's when a lot of things start changing, right? That's when you're applying for SSI and maybe there's a rent agreement. That's when the parents go, oh, we haven't updated our wills ever. We have these questions on benefits. So it's usually following that transition time, around the time, families would consider working with like Chapel Haven or looking into, and considering the next step. It's important to have some plans in place when an individual is younger, but realistically speaking, 40 hours a week driving to therapy, job, there's just only so much time in a day. So, and also we don't know how anybody's going to turn out to be. We don't know if somebody's going to need benefits or not. On that point, since we're here and you're stuck listening to me, I would say apply for benefits right at 18. You can lose them. I was on government benefits at 18. I was on SSI, SSDI, Medicare, Medicaid. Actually, really hard to lose Medicare. It's almost impossible, actually, but eventually you can. But it's easier to lose them than to try to get them again. What we see, unfortunately, is, individuals who waited to apply even several years, trying to go to school or trying to work, and they're only able to do maybe a little bit part-time, or they're not able to do it at all. And at that point, the government says, why'd you wait so long? Right? When at 18, oh, well, you proved you could work at a little bit. Well, right at 18, you don't necessarily have to prove that because you just turned 18. There's all the school records, etc. So we do recommend applying right away if you think there's a chance that it could be beneficial. For example, in Connecticut, you can keep Husky, make up to $75,000 a year, have $20 million in a retirement account, $10,000 in a bank account. All of that sounds pretty good. So you can still work and receive benefits, but you have to start with that SSI, and just look at it as the government helping you, get started. So
I'm gonna just ask Steve, are you seeing these questions in the Q&A? Because it looks like we have 3 new ones there.
now I'm seeing.
I got them.
Okay.
I'll
I
answer
was waiting for him. I was waiting for him to stop talking.
That'll never
Okay.
happen. Will a conversion
True.
from a 529 to a 528.9A avoid taxes and penalties? The answer is yes, absolutely. You are limited to the maximum able contribution per year. Only one individual can own one. Now, it's also important to remember that taxes and penalties are only on the gains with both accounts. So if you put 10,000 into a traditional 529 and you take out 10,000 the next day, there are no taxes and penalties. And by the way, Connecticut will still give you your tax deduction. They don't care. Take advantage of that. Okay. But the rollover would if there were gains inside the 529 to 529A. But again, it can be transferred to another individual and it can be done over many years. So where should parents start planning? We have an almost 21-year-old. What are the best resources to find a competent financial planner or attorney in Kentucky? So I love Louisville. It's like my favorite city. I have cousins who live, it's so clean too. So I guess living near New York, I guess the comparison's not that hard. Anyway, financial planners, we're every state in the country. Our client that's furthest away is in Switzerland because she moved there. And we help with that. We also have resources of networks of attorneys in all 50 states. And part of what we do is refer and introduce people. We have financial planners in 5 or 6 different states. We have one we work with a lot in Kentucky. So happy to help. Steve can help in 3 states, Florida,
Yep.
New York, and California. So
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
You would love
my
me to
bad.
get California. I know you just want me to go to California.
So California is one of the only states where you can become a lawyer without going to law school. So if I technically study under Steve, if he gets his California bar, then I could become a lawyer without going to law school. Anyway, not what you came here for. So what about life insurance? Our son is our co-beneficiary. If something were to happen to us, how would this impact his benefits? Should this be part of the trust documentation? This is the same
Yes.
person.
I mean, yes.
You
I mean,
need a
very
plan.
simple answer. You need a plan, but
Yes.
if the amount went to your child, it's all first party money. So that's a really good example of that's pure first party money that would cost them eligibility for any benefits if it went directly to them. Whereas a special needs trust being named as the beneficiary would be a safer bet.
But it's important that it all works together as part of a plan.
Correct. There's got to be a plan.
Yes. So, and there are some competent attorneys out there. So
A few.
Another on this rolling to 16K. No, it's not a taxable event. That's you could move that and there's no taxes. So
you guys talked about dinner a lot. Where are you going for dinner?
We're not. We're like an hour from each other today.
I know. I'm just
So-
kidding.
So I don't know. Maybe Friday.
Well, this was really terrific info. I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions. Doesn't look like it. I always learn so much. I mean, I think at Chapel Haven, we're pretty aware of things like SSI and how many hours you can work a week and without hurting your benefits and that sort of thing. But the ABLE account and the special needs trust, those are areas where we just can't get enough info, I think. So I found this very helpful.
Well, and the rules, things change. There's been a big issue in Connecticut where ABLE accounts are being deemed as individual assets and creating them penalty periods where they're ineligible for state supplement now. Every time they make a transfer. That was that the intent of the rule? Probably not. Especially because of the way it's all structured, but it's what the end result has been lately. So there's always things to learn. There's always things to watch out for because it's never static, and trust law is not static. None of these things stay the same. They're constantly changing.
But ABLE is federal legislation, isn't it?
So ABLE accounts are under federal law, but when it comes to benefit programs, each state gets to make on certain programs gets to make their own rules. And on any of the state's supplemental programs, they get to 100% make their own rules.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, I think we have answered all our questions. I really want to thank you guys for a great hour, very informative. And I also want to thank everybody who came out tonight. And we just appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us. We very appreciate it. We thank everyone for attending and letting us have a little bit of fun.
thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Night.
Right.